Have you ever caught one of the bass that's got the black spots all over it? Well, let's unpack what's going on with that, okay? Here we go. So I was doing a little research on this subject and got on the internet, and I found this information on Wired to Fish. If anybody else wants to look at it a little closer, I just kind of did an overview of what I was reading, and it's pretty interesting. If you've ever caught some of the bass that's got the black spots on them, maybe on their lips or maybe on their fins or sides or tail or whatever, what in the world is that? We've only been seeing that in the last few years. It's nothing that when I was growing up, you never saw a largemouth with that on him. So let's figure out what's going on. This is the information that I found, okay? The black spotches that caused by a condition known as melanosis. It is not the same as melanoma, which we know is a human skin cancer that you get from the sun rays on your ears or wherever. It's not the same. Melanosis occurs when a skin cell cannot regulate the pigment production like it should in the bass. Melanin production in the cells are greatly increased, resulting in those black spots that you see. So that's what's going on there. The skin cells on the bass naturally change color depending on the sunlight. Just like the melanoma in a person, the sunlight affecting that cancer cell, well, the bass are going through the basically the same thing with the sunlight on the melanosis. There's two different things there, okay? What are some of the possible causes of this, since we've not seen it in my lifetime except in the last few years? There are several causes of each case of melanosis in the bass. That's why cases are different. And the spots on the bass you might catch today and you throw him back, you might catch another bass in a day or two, or maybe even the same day, that those black spots are different in those bass, okay? The causes of this vary greatly. Genetics in the species is the number one thing, okay? Genetics from one, as they spawn year after year after year, they're passing that genetic on to the next offspring that they have. The next thing is cellular injury, and we're going to get into what causes that cellular injury. And poor water quality, imagine that, resulting in the stress of the fish. Okay, so there's a ladder effect as to what's going on there. Stress of the fish due to the water quality causes a cellular injury, which causes the genetics to change in that bass for him to pass it on later. And the way you determine each case, you have to get a tissue sample from each case, and it has to be looked at under a microscope, because like we said, one bass may not exhibit the same thing as another bass, just like different ones that you catch may look different. There has been a rise, and this is documented, there's been a rise in the cases of melanosis in the last 30 years. Just like I said, never seen it whenever I was growing up, and only in the last few years that you're starting to see this because of the stress in the fish. As the condition becomes increasingly more abundant in the gene pool of the particular lake or region that you're fishing in, my lakes and region may be different from yours. It may not be in yours yet. It may be more prevalent in other lakes and other regions, so it just depends on where you're at. Will be more exhibited in the area, and the more the bass in the lake. Genetic melanosis has been seen in aquariums in fish that have been bred to exhibit it. So they have different species, not just bass, that they found this in, put them in an aquarium, and they've bred, and it keeps going in the genes because there's no diversity in the genes. It's all keep going because they're held up in an aquarium. So that was a study that they've done. Water quality. Now this right here it really kind of gets to me about the water quality, because the water quality of all species in that lake is dictated by the water quality, okay, and what's going into that water quality. There is some relation between melanosis and poor water quality. Now, just for example, let's look at where I'm at. The lakes that I'm at have a very high concentration of limestone, because limestone is prevalent in the area that I'm at here in Middle Tennessee. So that limestone is going to be in there most of all. Also, with the effects of unchecked growth, out of control growth, whether it's subdivisions, warehouses, parking lots, buildings, here in Middle Tennessee, they're gone crazy. There's just no control over the development. And whenever it rains, all that parking lot gets wet. Where's it run? Runs to the drain, drains to the river drains to the lake. It's the toxins that's going into our water that we used to not have. You used to have plenty of pasture, a lot of different fields and everything, excuse me, that would take care of the toxins. When the rain fell, it didn't all of it get into the lakes and the rivers. But now it has no choice, because it goes straight from those places that's being developed into our rivers and lakes. So there you go. That's the biggest contributor to this melanosis that you're seeing in the bass. One example, there are several areas in the Susquehanna River, which that's up north, of course, Potomac River up north, where toxins have increased in the water, and melanosis has dramatically increased in the fish populations. Okay, they've studied them. They know it. That's what's causing this. Is the toxins going into the water, in turn stressing the fish. There's also other things that can be contributed to this melanosis. Different skin lesions. Sure, we've caught fish look like they've been hit by a propeller maybe or something, but a lot of times if you get to looking, it's a lesion, a large growth. You might have a large, like a cyst that's under the skin. That's part of it also. That's coming from this melanosis. And deformed jaws. I've caught fish, maybe you have too, as far as deformed jaws. That's caused from this melanosis. And also humpbacks. How many of us have ever caught an old humpback, largemouth or smallmouth, and it's all humpbacked over, and you're trying to figure what in the world has happened to this fish? You know, it's the genetics that comes through this melanosis that's got into those fish from the environment that they're in. So in conclusion, okay, we've talked about it. We see what may be causing it. We know what it is now. When you catch a fish that's got the black spots on it, we know what it is. Okay, you may catch a bass that has it, yet looks completely normal. That's what blew my mind when I read this study. It looks completely normal. Pictures you hold up, take a picture, whatever, put the fish back in the water. It may have it and you don't know it, okay? As the water cools and clears, those spots become more evident due to the sunlight penetration into the water, okay? There you go. It comes out as the sunlight penetrates it, just like we talked about the melanoma does on human skin. Now, what was really surprising again, melanosis is not a disease to these fish. Not a disease, it's a cellular deformity. Okay? You cannot contract this melanosis from eating that bass. If you choose to eat him, take him home, you're not going to catch it, melanosis, from eating that bass. Now, you might catch something else from the toxins that's in the water. Of course, everybody's got to watch, where you're fishing and such as that, as to what these toxins might be in the water. So you got to be careful from that. But you're not going to catch melanosis from that bass. Melanosis is not just in largemouth, it's also in smallmouth, catfish, and trout. Now, the catfish and the trout, I don't know much about. I used to catfish a lot, so maybe somebody can comment on the catfish and the trout. I'd like to know if you caught them with the black spots on the catfish. I just don't. So comment on that. Let us all know. So what we've determined through all this is that the water quality related to melanosis is observed because the bass response to the stress. Okay, it may be crystal clear water, but there may be still toxins in it, and that affects that bass because he's stressed trying to live, breathe and everything, and that creates stress in him, which creates the cell injury, which creates the gene that passes this on. So it all comes down to water quality. There's no correlation between melanosis and the lifespan of a bass. He's not going to die necessarily because he's got this, okay? He's not going to do it. And the other thing is, the melanosis does not affect the life of that bass, quality of life. Okay, there's a difference in the quality of life and the stress on that bass. Okay, he can live with it. It's not going to kill him, but the quality of his life depends on the toxins or the quality of the water that he's living in. So I was just really surprised by what I found out on this. I knew that I'd seen a lot of pictures with this with these black spots. I've caught them, took pictures of them, posted them. But now you know what those black spots are. Humpback, deformities in the bass. A lot of it is caused by the melanosis that's being caused in the water quality of what these fish are in. So I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed that information. I enjoyed looking it up. Maybe now when you catch one, you'll know what that black spot is that's on these fish. So I appreciate it. Hey, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. Like the video. I humbly ask you for that. That helps out the channel. So come on back. We'll figure something else out. Thanks a lot.